Have you ever sat completely still? Not to meditate, not to calm down, but simply to watch yourself. No goals, no fixing, just looking. When I first heard Krishnamurti talk about observing oneself, I didn't really understand what it meant. To me, observation meant analysis, to figure out what's wrong and make it right, to become better, stronger, more peaceful. But Krishnamurti wasn't talking about improvement. He was pointing to something far deeper, a state of pure awareness where you simply see, without judging, without labeling, without even the thought that says, I am watching. One morning, I decided to try it. There was nothing special about that day. The sun was just coming up through the window, the sound of traffic outside, the ordinary noise of life. But inside my mind, there was a storm. Thoughts rushing in. What am I doing with my life? Why do I feel so behind? Do people really understand me? Normally, I would reach for my phone, scroll through something, distract myself. But this time, I stopped. I simply sat and watched the thoughts arise. They came like waves, and I could feel how each one pulled at me, trying to drag me into its story. But I just looked. Not as someone judging, not as someone trying to stop them, but as awareness itself, watching the movement of thought. And after a while, something extraordinary happened. The mind began to quiet down on its own, not because I forced it, but because I was no longer participating in the noise. It was like watching clouds drift across the sky. You don't have to push them away. You don't have to chase the blue sky. You simply look, and everything passes naturally. And in that stillness, there was a kind of freedom, a lightness I had never felt before. I wasn't the one trying to control life. I was life, observing itself. Krishnamurti once said, to observe without the observer, that is freedom. At first, it sounds strange. How can there be observation without an observer? But I began to understand that the observer is the psychological image we hold of ourselves, the me that is always judging, comparing, trying to be better. That me wants to control everything. It wants to get rid of pain, to hold on to pleasure, to make life fit its expectations. But when the me is silent, when there is no interference from thought, observation becomes pure, effortless, like a mirror reflecting everything as it is. Once, a friend said something that really hurt me. I could feel the heat rise in my chest, the tightening in my stomach, the rush of defensive thoughts. How could he say that? He doesn't understand me. For a few seconds, I wanted to react, to send a message back, to prove that I was right. But then I stopped. I took a breath, and I just watched. I saw the movement of anger in my body, the rapid beating of the heart, the noise of thought that said, "He's wrong." And suddenly I realized it wasn't him I was fighting. It was my own image of myself being hurt. The mind was protecting something fragile, a picture of who I thought I was. When I saw that clearly, the anger began to lose its grip. I didn't need to forgive. Forgiveness was unnecessary because there was no longer anyone to be hurt. There was just awareness, watching the movement end. Self-observation is not easy. It sounds simple, but the mind is tricky. It always wants to turn everything into a method, a system, a practice, something we can master or achieve. But the moment you try to do observation, you're already back in the movement of the self. True observation has no motive. It doesn't say, I want to be peaceful. It just looks, and in that looking, there is understanding. Sometimes I notice myself escaping, through my phone, through food, through talking endlessly about things that don't matter. Anything to avoid looking at what's really inside. But when I stop running, when I simply sit in silence and look, I see fear, loneliness, confusion, and for the first time, I don't try to fix them. I just let them be. And something begins to shift. The emotions no longer control me. They move through me like waves, and underneath them, there's a quiet depth that never changes. That quietness, that's not something we create. It's already there, beneath the noise of thought. Krishnamurti called it the silence that is not made by will. It's not the silence of effort. It's the silence that comes when everything false has stopped moving. In that silence, you can see everything, your fears, your desires, your patterns, without resistance. And that seeing itself brings transformation. Not because you force yourself to change, but because what is false naturally falls away when it's seen clearly. There's something beautiful about this way of living. It's not about becoming someone better. It's about seeing who you actually are, moment by moment, without distortion. You start to notice the small things. How you react when someone disagrees, how the body tightens when you feel ignored, how you seek approval, how easily you escape discomfort. And when you watch these things without judgment, a kind of intelligence awakens. Not the intelligence of thought, but something deeper, a natural clarity that doesn't belong to you or me. People sometimes ask, why should I observe myself? What's the point? Will it make me happier? And I can only say, this is not about happiness, it's about truth. When you see clearly, you may discover that suffering is not something to escape from. It's something to understand. Because in understanding it completely, it ends. Suffering ends not through resistance, but through awareness. You don't have to do anything about it. You just need to see it fully, without turning away. If you're listening to this, perhaps there's already a part of you that wants to understand yourself more deeply. Don't make it into a goal. Don't try to meditate a certain way or follow a method. Just begin to notice when a thought arises, when emotion moves through the body, when fear whispers quietly in the background. Don't analyze. Don't name. Just watch. Watch the whole movement of your mind. At first, it feels strange because you're used to controlling everything. But if you stay with it, you'll begin to see that awareness itself is effortless. It's not something you do. It's something that simply is. And one day, you might suddenly realize the observer and the observed are not separate. The watcher and the watched are the same movement. In that moment, the me disappears. There's only awareness, limitless, silent, alive. And in that silence, there's immense beauty. Not the beauty of things, but the beauty of being. When you live like this, life becomes astonishingly simple. You stop chasing ideals. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop trying to arrive. Every moment becomes an opportunity to see yourself, to see the world, to see the subtle dance of thought and feeling. And in that seeing, there is love. Not the love that depends on someone, but love as a state of being, a deep compassion for everything that is. So maybe, if you feel touched by this, you could try it for yourself. Spend one day just watching. Watch your thoughts as they arise, your emotions as they move, your reactions as they unfold. Don't interfere. Don't judge. Don't try to become peaceful. Just look and see what happens. Maybe you'll begin to see life as it truly is, simple, fluid, luminous. And in that seeing you may discover something extraordinary, a peace that has nothing to do with effort, and a silence that has no end.